My sister showed up to family dinner wearing my engagement ring and acted like she didn't know where it came from. I wish I were exaggerating. I wish this were some symbolic thing, like a borrowed heirloom or a misunderstanding. But it was. It was the exact same ring my husband, Jake, gave me 3 years ago when he proposed on our grandma's porch. The antique oval-cut diamond, the hand-etched band, the small emerald inlay he said reminded him of my eyes, every last detail. And now it was on Kayla's finger, casual, sparkling in the candlelight while she passed the damn potatoes. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My mom had planned this dinner for weeks, our first big family meal since Dad died. She was glowing with effort, fluttering around like a Martha Stewart banshee. And I just froze. My brain tripped over itself. But my hands didn't, they shook. They clenched in my lap, they knew. Jake sat right beside me, eating, laughing at Kayla's stories, resting a warm hand on my thigh like he wasn't actively watching my life collapse in slow motion. I leaned into him and whispered, "Is that my ring?" He didn't even blink. What? On Kayla's hand, that's my fucking ring. Jake's grip tightened on my leg. "Stop it," he hissed under his breath. "Not here." That was his first mistake. Because when I'm told to stay quiet, I don't. Especially not when my younger sister, the one who used to steal my clothes, my diaries, and apparently now my husband, sits across from me with my engagement ring flashing like a lighthouse for homewreckers. Mom clinked her wineglass, eyes misty. "Before dessert, I just want to say how proud your father would be seeing all his girls together like this. Strong, supportive, loving." Kayla beamed. I stood up. Jake grabbed my wrist. "Liv, don't." "Too late." "Where'd you get the ring, Kay?" She looked up, innocent as a kitten in a blender. "Oh, this vintage shop downtown. Why?" "Bullshit," I snapped. The room dropped to dead silence. "That ring is from Grandpa Ede's jewelry box," I said. "The one Dad gave to me before he passed. It was mine. Jake gave it to me when he proposed." Kayla blinked. "Are you sure?" Jake cut in fast. "Liv, don't make this into something it's not." "No, let's," I said, turning to my mother. "You remember the ring, right? Dad gave it to me. I wore it for 3 years." Mom's eyes darted to Kayla's hand, then Jake, then me. Something flickered in her expression, recognition. Guilt. Kayla took a sip of wine. "Maybe it's a similar one." I laughed out loud, ugly and sharp. "Cut the shit, that's my ring. Unless you went and got the exact custom work redone on a stolen setting." Jake stood up now. "Okay, that's enough, you're embarrassing yourself." "Oh, am I? I'm not the one who's been fucking my sister." Kayla's wineglass shattered on the floor. Mom gasped. Jake stepped toward me. "That is not. Don't you dare gaslight me right now." Kayla was white as the tablecloth. "Last month," I said, voice rising, "you came over while I was at work. You said you were dropping off lasagna. I found your earrings in our couch cushions. They were from when we all watched that movie." I cut her off. "No, that was 2 months ago. You weren't even wearing earrings that night. But you were last month. The same gold hoops that accidentally fell into my bag during Christmas, remember?" Jake's face was stone. Kayla looked down. Then Mom slammed her fork onto the table. "Enough." We all turned. She stood slowly. "Jake," she said, voice low, eyes glassy. "I told you this would happen. I warned you this family couldn't handle another betrayal." "Another?" Jake stiffened. "What do you mean another?" I asked. My mother's voice wavered. "You weren't the first, Olivia. Your father." She trailed off, then took a deep breath. "Your father cheated on me, with my sister, and I didn't find out until after she died. That's why I've always been so hard on you girls, why I pushed so hard for appearances." Kayla's lip trembled. "Mom." "And now you," she said, turning to Kayla, "with your sister's husband." Jake said nothing. I couldn't move. "I saw the texts," Mom said. "On Jake's phone, I didn't want to believe it, but I knew the ring would set Olivia off." "Wait, you knew," I said. She looked away. "I didn't want to ruin the dinner." I laughed again, but it came out as a sob. "You let me sit here," I said, thinking I was crazy, thinking I was overreacting, while my sister wore my ring and you protected him. Mom sat down, quiet. "I was trying to protect the family." Kayla finally broke. I didn't mean for it to happen. Jake put a hand on her shoulder. And that goddamn touch, shattered whatever was left of me. I turned to leave. But Kayla stood up, holding her stomach. I didn't mean for it to happen, she repeated. Then she added, but I'm pregnant. And just like that, the world tilted. I don't remember dropping the wineglass. I only remember the sound, the sharp crack as it hit the floor and scattered, matching the rhythm of my heartbeat as I stared at her. Pregnant. My sister, pregnant. With my husband's baby. Jake didn't deny it. He didn't even look shocked. He looked relieved. Like the secret had finally spilled itself, and now the cleanup was someone else's job. Kayla gripped the back of her chair like it was keeping her upright. I wasn't going to say anything, she whispered, but you forced it. I took one step toward her. I forced it. Jake stepped between us. Stop. Oh, you want me to stop? You didn't stop when you unzipped your pants in my family's house, Jake. He flinched. Kayla winced. Mom rubbed her temples like this was all giving her a headache instead of unraveling her entire family. Tell me the truth, I said, voice low and shaking. When did it start? Jake stayed silent. Kayla whispered, 6 months. I felt like I'd been slapped. 6 months, that was back when I was sick. I'd had strep throat, missed work, was bedbound for almost 2 weeks. Jake had worked late nearly every night that month. I staggered back a step, trying to process, trying not to scream. And then, another memory hit me. The missing necklace. A dainty gold chain with a tiny opal charm, gift from my dad before he died. One day it was on my nightstand. The next, gone, I searched everywhere. Jake told me I probably misplaced it. Kayla wore that necklace to Christmas brunch. I knew it. But when I asked, she said, oh, it's just a cheap Etsy knockoff. I looked her in the eye now. The necklace. She blinked. What? The opal necklace, from Dad. You stole it. No, Jake growled, Jesus, Liv, you're spiraling. I grabbed Kayla's wrist. Take it off. Let go of me. Take it off. She ripped it off her neck and threw it at me. It clinked against the wall and dropped to the hardwood. I didn't steal it, she snapped. You left it at Mom's. I found it in the guest room and thought you didn't want it. I turned to Mom. She didn't say a word. You knew, didn't you? I asked her. She hesitated. I didn't want to get involved. It wasn't my place. Wasn't your place. This is your family. She looked away. I bent down, picked up the necklace, and curled it into my fist so tight the chain cut into my skin. How long have you all been watching me fall apart and saying nothing? Jake tried to speak again. I shut him down. You don't get to talk to me anymore. He raised his hands, stepped back. Kayla sat down hard, hand over her belly like that gave her protection. I didn't plan this, Liv. But you let it happen, I snapped. Every time you looked me in the eye, every time you hugged me, every text you sent saying you deserve the world. You were already sleeping with him. Her chin trembled. I thought he loved me. I turned to Jake. Do you? He didn't answer. So I asked louder, do you love her? He looked at Kayla. And then, finally, he nodded. My vision swam. My lungs couldn't catch a full breath. And the baby? I asked, my voice barely audible. Jake stepped forward slowly. It wasn't on purpose, but yes, I'm going to be there. I'll do right by her. You already had someone to do right by. Jake's jaw clenched. You and I haven't been okay for a long time, Liv. I laughed, bitter and broken. So you decided to fuck my sister instead of talking to me about it. She listened. You shut down. I shook my head, tears burning. Mom stood up. Let's not do this here. No, I cut her off. Let's absolutely do this here, because you've all been hiding this from me like I'm some fragile idiot. Kayla spoke up. We weren't hiding it. We were waiting for the right time. I turned to her, voice dropping. What about my time, Kayla? You took my ring, my husband, my dad's necklace, and now you want to act like I'm the one making a scene. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. I froze. You love him. She nodded slowly. I do. Jake placed a hand on her back. The room spun. And then my mother said the worst possible thing. I wish I could say I was surprised, but honestly, I always knew the two of them had a connection. Silence. Cold, final. I stared at her. Excuse me. She wrung her hands. I never said anything because I thought maybe it was just chemistry. I didn't think they'd act on it, but it was always there. You saw this coming, and you let them sit across from me like nothing was happening. She didn't answer. And that was answer enough. I backed away from the table. I'm done. Jake followed. Where are you going? Out of this nightmare, I said, and you're going to regret ever touching a single thing that belonged to me. Kayla cried. Mom tried to stop me. Jake called my name as I grabbed my coat. But just before I left, I turned around and looked straight at them. Do any of you know where my fertility meds went? The room went still. Jake frowned. What? My meds, the ones I left in the kitchen last month, they disappeared. No one spoke. I wasn't ovulating, I said softly. We'd been trying, Jake knows that, and then I missed a refill, and somehow now she's pregnant. Mom's mouth dropped open. Kayla looked away. And that's when I knew. They didn't just betray me. They planned it. I stood in that doorway, the air around me warping from betrayal into something colder, calculated. Jake's eyes twitched, just a blink, but I saw it. That's the tell he gives when he knows he's been caught and the lie's still halfway up his throat. You think I stole your fertility meds? Kayla scoffed, but her voice cracked on the word stole. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Mom sat down slowly, like her knees had finally buckled under the weight of all the bullshit. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Jake tried again. Liv, listen to yourself. You're upset. You're spiraling. There you go again, I cut him off with the gaslight greatest hits. You're overreacting. You're spiraling. Be rational. I stepped toward him. You said you wanted a baby. For a year you said it. We cried about it. I blamed myself. I took hormone shots alone. I scheduled every appointment. And now you're telling me that while I was planning our future, you were impregnating my sister. He exhaled. You weren't the only one hurting, Liv. Oh my God, I laughed. You're actually going to play the sad husband card. I turned to Kayla. Tell me, did you even want to be pregnant? Her eyes darted to Mom, then Jake. It was planned. But you kept it. My voice went razor sharp. And I'm willing to bet you knew exactly what would happen when you walked in here wearing my ring with that baby bump tucked under your coat. Jake stepped forward. All right, enough. This isn't helping anyone. No, you don't get to dictate when this ends. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and opened the photo I'd taken months ago, the one Jake thought I deleted. I turned the screen to them. Kayla gasped. It was blurry, but you could clearly see her in Jake's car. The passenger door open, her hand resting on his thigh, taken outside a Walgreens, one that happened to share a parking lot with my OB/GYN's clinic. I said nothing. They said nothing. My mom looked wrecked. Then came the real dagger. Liv, she started carefully. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe Jake was stepping out on you, yes, but I never guessed it was with Kayla. I didn't want you to have to face what I did. I froze. What? She looked up at me, eyes wet. When your dad cheated on me, it broke something inside me. I became cold, obsessed with keeping the image of a perfect family. So when I saw things slipping with you and Jake, I told myself it was just a rough patch, that if I kept everything together, it would pass. Like maybe I could rewrite history through you. My jaw clenched. So instead of protecting your daughter, you kept the family portrait clean. Mom lowered her eyes. Yes. Jake's phone buzzed. He silenced it, but my eyes caught the notification banner. Kay, should I still tell her? She's leaving anyway. I snatched the phone. Jake lunged. Liv, don't. I backed away fast, hands shaking as I tapped it open. No password, he never locked it around me. Too confident. The texts were all there, from Kay. Except this Kay was Kayla. The contact name was just the letter, but the photo, it wasn't my sister. It was Kelsey. My cousin. Oh my God, the words fell out of my mouth. Kayla froze. What is it? I turned the screen to her. She paled. No, she whispered. Jake sighed. Fuck. Kelsey, I said. You cheated on me with Kelsey first, didn't you? Kayla shook her head slowly, eyes going glassy. You said it was just once. Jake ran a hand down his face. It didn't mean anything. Oh my God, I yelled. Was this a game to you? Sleeping your way through my bloodline like you're climbing a family tree. Liv, I never planned this. You made me think I couldn't get pregnant. You made me believe it was my body failing, my heart breaking every month, while you were leaving Plan B receipts in the car with Kelsey and putting Bobby's in Kayla. Kayla sat down hard. You told me I was the only one. He said nothing. And then Mom whispered, she's not. I spun. What? She looked like she'd aged 20 years in 5 minutes. I found a bracelet, she said, 2 weeks ago, one of those cheap silver ones from a kiosk. It was behind the guest bed, engraved with a name. My breath stopped. Kendra. My college roommate. The one who visited once. The one Jake said was flirting with him and made me feel guilty for inviting. Kayla looked like she might puke. I walked toward the table and placed Jake's phone in front of them like it was radioactive. Wow, I whispered, you really hit the trifecta. Cousin, sister, best friend, why not go for Mom next and complete the trauma Olympics? Jake muttered, that's not fair. No, I said, you know what's not fair? That I loved you, that I trusted you, that I defended you every time people said you were too slick, too flirty, too performative. I said, that's just Jake. But you know what? They were right, you're a performance. A full fucking illusion. Kayla sobbed, I didn't know about Kelsey or Kendra. Jake looked at her, it didn't matter, you were different. I laughed, oh, so she's the final draft. Jake stepped toward me. Liv, we can talk about this, figure something out, this doesn't have to end ugly. You're right, I said, it can end with truth. I pulled out my phone again. Hit play on the voice memo I'd been recording since the first ring comment. Jake's voice rang out in the room, I'm going to be there, I'll do right by her. Then Kayla, I didn't mean to fall in love with him. Then Mom's, I saw the texts, but I didn't want to ruin the dinner. Jake lunged for the phone. I stepped back. That's going to every contact you have, I said. Your boss, your parents, our friends, Kayla's friends, everyone. Kayla whispered, Liv please, I'm pregnant. Then pray the baby doesn't turn out like its father. I turned to walk out. But before I reached the door, Mom called out, voice hollow. Liv, there's one more thing. I turned. She was holding a letter. It's from your dad. I wasn't going to give it to you, but you need to see it. I unfolded it with trembling hands. At the bottom, it read, if Jake ever breaks your heart, ask your mother what she knows. She's known since before the wedding. I looked up. My mother's face said everything. She had known from the beginning. The letter trembled in my hands, my father's words searing through me like acid. She's known since before the wedding. I looked up at my mother, and for a moment, just one, I didn't see my mother at all. I saw a woman who had traded my reality for silence, who had held my hand while I walked down the aisle with a man she knew would ruin me. You knew, I said, my voice paper-thin. Before the wedding, he was already cheating. She didn't answer. Was it Kelsey, Kendra, Kayla? She still didn't speak. Who was it? I snapped. She swallowed, then said softly, it was none of them. Silence. It was someone else, I asked, baffled. She nodded once, then turned to Kayla, you should sit down. Kayla looked confused. What, why? Because what I'm about to say changes everything. Jake tensed beside her. Mom walked slowly to the hutch in the corner of the dining room, the one that still held our grandma's wedding china. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a dusty blue box. She handed it to me. Inside was a stack of old photographs bound with ribbon and a smaller envelope, sealed. I pulled out the first photo. It was me, age 16. At prom, wearing a silver dress. Arm in arm with my date. Jake. I blinked. This was prom. We went as friends. I didn't even remember these. Mom nodded. Jake was older, already graduated. You were what, a sophomore? Yeah. Kayla leaned forward. Wait, what does that have to do with anything? Mom spoke slowly. Jake didn't come into your life by accident, Olivia. He wasn't some college sweetheart you randomly met in a cafe 3 years later. He was already fixated. I froze. What? She turned to Jake. Tell her the truth. He looked pale, ashen. It wasn't like that. Tell her, Mom repeated, steel behind the softness. Jake finally muttered, I kept tabs on you. My mouth went dry. What the hell does that mean? He looked at the table. After prom, after we kissed, I never forgot. I followed your socials, kept photos, checked where you were going to school. When you posted about working at the bookstore junior year, I applied there too. Kayla gasped, you targeted her. He snapped, it wasn't targeting, I loved her. From when she was 16, Kayla shrieked. I backed away like Jake had grown fangs. So when you bumped into me that day, you planned it. He nodded once. I'd been watching for a long time. I waited until you were old enough. I told myself I was being respectful. Respectful, I whispered. You stalked me for years, that's not love, that's predatory. Mom sat down slowly. I found out before the wedding. I overheard him talking on the phone to one of his friends. He said, I've waited for this since she was 16. I covered my mouth, nausea rising in my throat. You still let me marry him. I thought, Mom said, tears welling, that maybe it was just twisted timing. That he really did love you and the rest was just obsession he'd outgrown. Kayla looked stunned, and you told no one. I begged him to treat her right, Mom said. He promised me he'd never hurt her. And I thought, after what your father did, I thought maybe I'd finally kept something together. Jake stepped forward. None of that changes the fact that I did love you, Liv. I flinched. Stop saying that. You don't love people, you collect them. Kayla was shaking her head. So I'm just what? A mistake, a side quest. He looked at her confused. No, you were unexpected. That's not an answer, she snapped. I opened the sealed envelope from the box. My father's handwriting again. It wasn't a letter this time. It was a birth certificate copy. I scanned it, my name, my date of birth. Father, Edward Monroe. Mother, Karen Monroe. Nothing new. Then behind it, another document. Another birth certificate. Same date. Same hospital. But Kayla's name. And the father's name was left blank. What is this? I asked slowly. Mom looked like she just aged 10 years in the last minute. I was pregnant with Kayla when your dad and I got back together, she whispered. We weren't speaking when she was conceived. Kayla blinked. Mom, who's my dad? Mom looked at her, defeated. I don't know, it might have been a man I met at a grief support group. I never told anyone. Eid offered to raise her like his own, and I let him. I wanted you girls to be sisters, to grow up equal. But we're not, Kayla whispered. We never were. Jake exhaled sharply. I turned to him. You knew. He nodded slowly. I found the documents years ago. I didn't say anything because I didn't want it to change things. I figured it was family business. Yet you still screwed her, I spat, knowing she was my half-sister. Kayla's hands shook, and you still chose me. He said nothing. She screamed, answer me. Jake finally muttered, because I couldn't have a kid with Liv. You could. Silence. The ugliest silence I've ever known. Kayla's mouth dropped open. I stared at him. So that's it. You threw me away because I couldn't give you a baby fast enough, and Kayla could. I wanted a family, he said coldly. And you were always so focused on fixing what was broken, you didn't see we were already broken. I laughed, wild and empty. Oh, we were broken, then let me shatter this last piece. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a tiny plastic test, the one I'd taken this morning, before dinner. The one I hadn't had time to process yet. I held it up for all to see. Positive. Kayla's face collapsed. Jake looked like he'd been punched in the throat. I smiled through my tears. I guess we weren't so broken after all. The room was a bomb crater. No one spoke, no one breathed. The only sound was the whisper of my own pulse in my ears. I held the pregnancy test like a weapon. The one thing he wanted, the thing he threw me away for, was now the last thing tying him to me. And I wanted it that way. Jake looked like he'd swallowed glass. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not possible. Oh, it's possible, I said. You remember last month, When you said we should stop trying so hard and just let nature do its thing? Turns out nature did. Kayla clutched her stomach. You're pregnant too. I turned to her, letting my words sink in. Yeah, so if this was a competition, sis, we're tied. Liv, Jake started. I cut him off. Save it, you wanted legacy. Congratulations, now you've got 2 bloodlines to destroy. Mom sat with her head in her hands, silent, ashamed, numb. I didn't care anymore. Jake took a step toward me. We need to talk alone. No, I snapped, we don't. Come on, he pleaded. This changes everything. I laughed. Does it? You already traded up. You already knocked up my half-sister and let her wear my ring. What more is there to say? Jake turned to Kayla. Give us a minute. Kayla stared at him. No, her voice was ice. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. He blinked. What? I believed you, she said, voice shaking. I thought you loved me, that this was some twisted meant-to-be thing, that Liv was the past and I was the future. He moved toward her. You are. Kayla pulled back like he was poison. You knew I was her sister, her blood, you planned it. You made me feel like I was rescuing you from some loveless marriage, but now I see it. You were just planting insurance. He looked between us. You're both being dramatic. I held up the pregnancy test again. We're being factual. He turned back to me, cold now. So what do you want, Olivia? Money, custody, some kind of co-parenting arrangement? You think I'm going to chase 2 kids between 2 sisters? I don't want anything from you, I said. Jake frowned. I'll raise this baby alone, I said. But I swear to God, if you come near me or this child again, I will bury you in court. I will burn every bridge you've ever built. Your job, gone. Your reputation, vapor. Every person who's ever looked at you with respect, I'll make them gag. He narrowed his eyes. You can't. I have everything, Jake. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my notes app. There it was. The list I'd started months ago, before the ring, before I even knew what he was. A timeline of every time he worked late. A log of his phone records. Photos, receipts, texts, emails. Even a voice memo of his voice calling Kayla, his escape plan. He paled. I turned to Kayla. You think you're special? You're just one more branch on his climb up the family tree. Kelsey was the first, Kendra the detour. You were just the one that stuck. She shook her head, eyes glassy. And now, I said, now you're a liability, because I'm the legal wife and you're just a footnote in the scandal that's about to end his entire life. Kayla whispered, what are you going to do? I looked between them. Tell the truth. Then I turned to Mom, to everyone. She looked up finally. Olivia, think about the baby. I am thinking about the baby. Mine, not yours, not theirs. And I'm thinking about how he'll grow up knowing what strength looks like. Jake took a step back, panic creeping into his face. Let's not escalate this. Oh, I haven't started yet. I tapped send all on the email I drafted hours ago, before I even stepped foot into the house. An email blast to Jake's boss, his parents, my friends, Kayla's ex, my therapist, our church's newsletter contact, a journalist I knew from college. The subject line read, Family man or fraud, the real Jake Carter. Jake's phone buzzed and buzzed again and again. He snatched it from his pocket. What did you do? I smiled. You always said I wasn't bold enough. Surprise. Kayla's phone buzzed too. She looked down, gasped. I told you, I said, everyone. Jake charged at me. You don't know what you've done. I stood still. Yeah, I do. And then, from the kitchen, a new voice. Am I late for dessert? We all turned. Kelsey stood there, my cousin, hair curled, lips painted, phone in hand. I got your message, she said. Thought I'd come see the fallout in person. Jake backed up like she was a ghost. Kelsey smirked. Hi, Kayla, cute ring, I had that one first. Kayla's eyes narrowed. You. Yep, Kelsey cut her off. He told me you were desperate. He told me you were the mistake. Kayla started shaking. You knew. I didn't know it was your sister, Kelsey said, but I did know he was married, and I did know he was a liar. And when I realized he had a type, well, I thought we should compare notes. She turned to me. You were right about everything. Jake looked like he was about to vomit. And then, the front door opened, and a man stepped in. Tall, salt and pepper hair, sharp blue eyes. My uncle. Kelsey's dad. Where, Jake? He asked, voice cold. Jake stammered, Mr. Ryerson, this is. Sit down, my uncle barked. We're going to have a very public conversation. Jake actually obeyed. Because what none of them knew is that Uncle Greg. He's a family court judge. Jake sat down like someone had cut his strings. The room snapped quiet, the kind of silence you only get before a legal detonation. Uncle Greg looked around the table, gaze hard. Which one of you wants to go first? Jake opened his mouth. Greg cut him off, not you. Kayla stared at the floor, one hand still on her stomach. Kelsey leaned against the doorframe with a smugness only betrayal survivors can pull off. My mother looked like she might actually pass out. And I had never stood straighter in my life. Greg turned to me, Olivia. I nodded. He's cheated, manipulated, gaslit. With my cousin, with my sister, with my friends, there are photos, voice memos, multiple women. And now he's got both me and my sister pregnant. Greg blinked, then looked at Jake. You knocked them both up. Jake exhaled, exasperated. This isn't a courtroom. No, Greg said, but it can be. I reached into my purse and handed Greg a manila envelope I'd packed months ago, back when I first suspected Jake of lying. Back before I knew just how deep the rot went. Greg took it without a word, flipped through the stack. Receipts, timestamp texts, voicemails, credit card statements, screenshots. At one point he muttered, Jesus Christ, Jake. Then he looked at me, you want to take this to court? I want full custody, I said, and I want him legally barred from ever interfering in my child's life. Jake snapped, you can't do that. Greg lifted a hand. Legally? If I testify on her behalf with this much supporting evidence, she absolutely can. And that's just the family court side. Do you want to discuss criminal fraud, too? You used fertility sabotage, didn't disclose affairs during medical treatments, and impersonated a trustworthy spouse while juggling God knows how many emotional liabilities. Wait, what's that mean? Kayla said, confused. It means, Greg said, that if Liv really wanted to, she could press for felony charges tied to reproductive coercion. That's a very real thing. And this, he shook the folder, would make one hell of a case. Jake looked like he might puke. Of course, Greg added, I'll recuse myself from handling the actual court matter. Conflict of interest, but I'll damn sure make sure the right people see this. Kelsey piped up, and I can confirm the timeline. He was seeing me before either of their pregnancies. Kayla flinched. Jake turned to her. Don't listen to her, she's lying, she wants revenge. Kayla stood. She doesn't need revenge, she said quietly. You handed it to her. He turned toward her, voice soft. Kayla. No, she snapped. Don't. You don't get to soft voice your way out of this. You used me, lied to me, made me think I was the one thing in your life that wasn't broken. But I wasn't your escape, I was just your exit strategy. Jake tried to reach for her hand. She recoiled, don't touch me. Then, without warning, Kayla walked around the table, picked up her wineglass, and poured it over his head. Gasps. Jake sputtered, stood up fast. I loved you, she hissed, and you used that. He stood there, drenched, dripping Merlot and shame. Greg folded the manila folder shut and tucked it under his arm. This conversation is over. Liv, you stay in touch. Kayla, you'll want legal counsel of your own. Kelsey, you may want to consider pressing charges of your own, depending on what you've got on file. Jake finally snapped, oh come on, this is insane. I smiled, is it, because this feels like clarity. Then I walked over to the dining table, our grandmother's table, the one Jake had no right to sit at anymore, and reached for the object that started it all. The ring. I yanked it off Kayla's finger without warning. She didn't stop me. She just let it go, eyes still fixed on Jake like she was watching the final scene of a movie she never agreed to be in. I held the ring up. This, I said, was never yours to give. Jake stepped toward me. Don't, I warned. Then I tossed the ring into the fireplace. Everyone turned. The flames swallowed it instantly, cracking as metal warped in the heat. My heirloom, I said. My memory, my pain, yours no longer. Jake lunged. Greg blocked him. We're done here. But I wasn't done. Because one final twist still burned on my tongue. I looked at Kayla. You want to know something sick? She blinked. I walked closer, whispering just loud enough for the room to hear. When I told Jake I was pregnant this morning, before this dinner, you know what he said. She didn't respond. He said, you're lying, I flushed your meds 2 months ago. Kayla staggered back like she'd been slapped. No, she breathed. Greg turned, eyes wide. You did what? Jake looked trapped now, wild, desperate. I thought she wasn't ready, I panicked. You sabotaged her treatment? Greg roared. That's reproductive assault. I will make sure this is prosecuted. Kayla looked like she might collapse. You did that to her while telling me we were starting a family. Jake tried to speak. Kayla slapped him. Hard. The room went dead silent. She turned to me, breath trembling. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I stared at her, the echo of that slap still ringing in the room. I believe you, I said, but this doesn't make us sisters again. And then I turned to the one person who'd stayed silent long enough. My mother. She looked up, eyes red, face hollow. I walked over and dropped the scorched remains of the ring box onto her plate. I learned betrayal from the best, I said, but my kid will learn boundaries from me. And then I left. But just before I closed the door behind me, Greg said one final thing. Liv, you're not just going to win, you're going to bury him. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the guest room at Greg's, wide awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like time itself was trying to shake me off. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone. New messages poured in. From Jake. Please don't do this. I made mistakes, but we can fix it. You're destroying my life. From Kayla. I don't know who I am anymore. I really didn't know about Kelsey. If I'd known what he did to your meds. From Mom. Can we talk? I was wrong. I'm sorry, I should have stopped it before it started. I didn't respond to any of them. I just placed my hand over my belly, still barely anything, a whisper of a change, and whispered, It's over now, I've got you, you've got me, we're enough. Greg had taken the documents, the recordings, the photos. He was preparing the legal offensive, said he'd already called in 3 favors. Jake Carter won't be able to rent a U-Haul without tripping a red flag by Monday, he promised. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. And finally saying it out loud. So I went public. I posted my story online, not for sympathy, but so no one else would ever fall for Jake's perfect charming bullshit again. I included screenshots, faces blurred, details redacted where necessary. Within 48 hours, it hit 600K views. Title, My husband got my sister pregnant and thought I'd raise them both. The comments came in floods. This is diabolical. She poured the wine on him, icon. I got chills when she said the ring wasn't his to give. Tell me I'm not the only one whose worst heartbreak started at the dinner table. It wasn't just viral, it echoed. Turns out betrayal inside a family hurts people on a cellular level. Because it unravels more than a relationship, it unravels your identity. People told me about their brothers sleeping with their wives, about mothers protecting predators, about cousins getting written out of wills after affairs blew up marriages. My pain wasn't rare. It was relatable. And Jake, his professional accounts went silent. He posted a half-assed Notes app apology on his Instagram, which got ratioed into oblivion. Some tried to defend him, but then someone found the fertility sabotage detail. That ended fast. Meanwhile, Kelsey posted her own thread, and Kayla disappeared offline. Greg filed the paperwork. I filed for divorce, full custody, and a restraining order. And then, one evening, 3 weeks after the dinner, I got a call from Kayla. I stared at the screen for a long time before I answered. Liv, she said. I stayed quiet. I'm going away. A clinic actually, I need help. Still quiet. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I needed to say it anyway. I didn't just betray you, I betrayed myself. For attention. For a man who made me feel special while tearing you apart. I let it happen. Silence. I kept thinking I was the exception, but I was the pattern. I finally said, I hope you mean it. I do, she whispered. I really do. And I want you to know I scheduled a termination. I can't bring a child into this with him. I inhaled slowly. Not relief, not vengeance, just weight lifting slightly. That's your choice, I said, and it's not mine to judge. A beat. Will we ever talk again? I don't know, I said honestly. But I think one day, my kid deserves to know the full story. And when that day comes, maybe we'll be strong enough to tell it together. She started to cry. I hung up gently. Weeks passed. And then months. The divorce finalized. My name restored. Jake never showed up to the hearing. His lawyer emailed a no-contest statement. Kelsey messaged me, a single heart, emoji on the day the podcast aired. Title, Family, Lies, and Baby Traps, the Olivia Carter story. Over 1.4 million downloads. I started over. Moved to a smaller place. Painted the walls the softest sage green you've ever seen. Started prenatal yoga. Started therapy. Started speaking. Not whispering. Because the worst kind of betrayal is when someone breaks your heart. It's when someone rewrites your reality and hands it back to you as a gift. But now, I write my own story. And the next chapter, it starts with a baby. No lies. No apologies. Just love. Tell me I'm not the only one whose worst heartbreak started at the dinner table.